On the death of a rhyming critic, my muse attempts a doleful rune. Poor Macer Sunday afternoon resigned the cares of earthly strife, and reached his last eternal life, a curious fellow in his time, fond of old books and prone to rhyme, a scribbling pedant of the sort that scorned the age and right for sport. A little wit he sometimes had, but half of what he wrote was bad. In metre he was very fair, of rhetoric he had his share, but of the past so much he'd prate that he was always out of date. He leaned to mythologic matters and sang of what they called gods and nymphs and satyrs, which could be the same thing. Till so unvaried grew his art, you could not tell his works apart. The modern ear he'd often pain with rantings in heroic strain, and when the town would call them witty, 'twas mostly out of friendly pity. Though much by ancient notions marred, he was a fairly clever bard. His numbers smooth enough would roll, but after all, he had no soul. His pen was ever keen to fight for manly virtue and the right, but somehow he was rather weak. Instead of slang, he quoted Greek. He served his purpose to correct each rising poet's crude defect, and yet he never made life the sweeter, for all he knew was rhyme and meter. His even verses will be missed, though he was quite an egotist. Of all his views I can't approve, but still I mourn with tears of love. My grief is deep. Since 3:30 I've worked upon an elegy, yet cannot seem to get it done in time to reach the morning sun. To polish must my care engage, for I am promised the first page. Yes, he is gone, I feel the sorrow. The funeral will be held tomorrow. My broadcloth suit I'm having pressed to go and see him laid to rest. God speed his soul, I trust he'll rove in mind mid seraphim above. And by the way, though I've been told he had but little wealth and gold, I wonder what his heirs will do with all his books. They were not few. In truth, I know of 2 or 3 that could be nobly used by me. So many strugglers he befriended, that rougher bards on him depended. His death will still more pens than his. I wonder where the fellow is. He's in a better land or worse. I wonder who'll revise my verse. He never left a stanza slack, but I could hardly wish him back. Tears for his loss do freely flow, yet after all 'tis better so. And a very important thing for heirs to do is to regard the use of what has been left behind, to actually look things over. Whether it's just for its material value, because a lot of things can be very surprising. You could think something is a couple dollar thrift store item, and it's not even worth trying to, well, I mean, it could still literally end up being sold in a thrift store for a couple bucks, but you might think that something's worth maybe even $10 or something like this, and it's worth tens or even hundreds of thousands. But much more than that, there's intellectual and spiritual benefit that can be derived from some of these things that have been left behind. Perhaps better use than even the owners put them to.